The journey began on July 16, 1861. General Irvin McDowell and his army of 35,000 men set out from Washington, D.C., hoping to capture Richmond and put a quick end to the newly erupted war. The young recruits marched proudly down the streets of the nation's capital, amidst cheers from a crowd of bystanders, little knowing of the onerous task which lay ahead. Traveling was slow in the oppressive July heat. The soldiers covered barely 5 miles the first day, as they made frequent stops to pick berries along the roadside. By the 18th, McDowell's army had arrived at Centerville, Virginia. They spent the next 2 days surveying their surroundings. Meanwhile, a regiment of 22,000 Confederates, led by General Pierre G.T. Beauregard, lay in wait at the stone bridge, which stood above a meandering stream called Bull Run. As the sun rose the morning of July 21st, great excitement filled the air. Swarms of photographers, politicians, and ordinary citizens dotted the hillside surrounding Bull Run. Elegantly dressed ladies carrying parasols, laughing children, and men bearing picnic baskets and wine settled down, awaiting the great battle to begin. Amidst their joviality, no one was aware that the grim spectacle of America's bloodiest war was about to commence. The following march was written in an attempt to capture the flavor of the patriotic revelry and simple naivety which occurred before the first Battle of Manassas. The first shot shattered the pre-dawn silence around 5:15 a.m., the morning of July 21st. A Federal brigade under General Israel Richardson fired several artillery rounds across Mitchell's Ford, some of which struck the Wilmer McLean house, where General Beauregard was eating breakfast. Thus the battle had officially begun. McDowell and Beauregard had made similar plans to outflank their opponents on the left. Confusion, delays, and missed communications hampered the successful maneuvers of both armies. Once the fighting got underway in earnest, the battle raged throughout the day. At first, the Union forces were successful in driving back the Confederates. Around noon, there was a lull in the action taking place on Henry House Hill, which allowed the Confederates to reorganize their troops. Late in the afternoon, Confederate reinforcements helped to break up the Union's right flank. At the height of battle, General Jeb Stuart charged his cavalry unit into a group of New York soldiers and sent them fleeing. Things began to deteriorate rapidly, and just after 4 p.m., fresh Confederate troops slammed into the Union line on Chin Ridge, causing a discouraged McDowell and his army to withdraw. The Union soldiers bolted back to Washington with the Confederates hot on their heels. During their retreat, they were caught up in the turmoil of the spectators who had come to view the battle and were blocking the pathways, attempting to flee themselves. Later, the Confederates would refer to the Union's hasty retreat back to Washington as the Great Skedaddle. One soldier observed that the fleeing spectators left behind enough unopened champagne for a regiment to bathe in. As the sun sunk low on the horizon and dusk settled over the fields of Manassas, 387 Confederates and 460 Federal soldiers, who had started out the day with such hope and conviction, lay silently on the blood-soaked ground where they had drawn their last breath. This ballad was written to honor my second great-grandfather, Christopher Divers, and all the other brave young men who lost their lives during the first Battle of Bull Run.